Hi everybody and welcome to another Kalicube Tuesdays. Today with Danielle Alfon. We've been having a quick chat about LinkedIn and it's phenomenally interesting. I'm really keen to learn about this from a curiosity perspective. So the conversation isn't going to be about how to get a gazillion followers. It's going to be how to use LinkedIn organically. How does it function? How can we make the most of it as a SaaS from our perspective, or B2B if you're not a SaaS, which we are. A quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Danielle Alfon.
Wow, Jason, what an intro. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak with the brand SERP guy himself.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're the LinkedIn organic guy, apparently. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. Before we get going with the conversation about LinkedIn, I wanted to really quickly announce this. I'm super overexcited. The Knowledge Panel checklist, Educate Google Like You Would a Child. We're going to be releasing that in a few weeks, and it's completely free. 17-point checklist, how to educate Google, how to get a knowledge panel, how to manage it on Google. It's an absolutely brilliant job by the Kalicube team, Katrina and Marianne and Elisa in particular. So that was my announcement for the day. I also have a quick sponsor mention. It's produced in partnership, as always, Kalicube Tuesdays with Wordlift, our dear friends from Rome, the artificial intelligence you need to grow your traffic. And I wanted to talk about the Kalicube Pro SaaS for agencies. You can manage the brand SERPs and knowledge panels for your clients there. And I've just realized I've written band and not brand SERPs. And that's going to have the knowledge panel, of course. What would you call it? Knowledge panel course built into it, where I teach agencies all of the geeky stuff I've learned about triggering knowledge panels. And I'm going to learn some more stuff today because LinkedIn is really important to Google. Despite the fact it belongs to Microsoft, Google uses LinkedIn a lot to get information. So really, before we start, I have one question, which is the question you were just answering when we came on air. To what extent does LinkedIn change any information within LinkedIn? And to what extent does it push us to add information of ourselves?
Cool. Jason, these are two separate questions. LinkedIn usually heavily promotes us completing the profile. There are all sorts of prompts, and LinkedIn would ask you, Jason, would you like to do this and that? But LinkedIn will not change the information on your behalf unless something serious happens, like another user flagging you or something like that, or a technical problem like trying to use a duplicate email or something like that. But it's our responsibility as brand owners to make sure the brand is nicely and professionally reflected on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Which is actually really important from at least my perspective, because Google is trusting LinkedIn, and so it's trusting us to talk about ourselves, which is terribly interesting, presumably because other people will flag you if it's not true. And LinkedIn seems to be quite a clean world. Am I right? I mean, cleaner maybe than Twitter, less spam, less spammy accounts.
You're absolutely right in both accounts. I'd mention this because there has been some research around this, and people may exaggerate on their CVs or their resumes, but they usually do that to a lesser extent on LinkedIn simply because of what you said. I know that my peers or my clients or my ecosystem or my subordinates are going to see this, so usually it's even more there's less gap between what we see on LinkedIn and real life because of that perception and the fact it's a public platform.
Right. Yeah, that's actually really, really interesting, because from that perspective, you've got something like Crunchbase, which deals in facts, and it's very, very kind of dry fact stuff. LinkedIn has a bit more personality, but the personality is held down by peer group pressure, whereas Twitter, it's just let loose and say anything.
Yes. There is also something else I'd like to stress. You mentioned the importance of LinkedIn in the eyes of Google. So most of our listeners, if they try to Google their own name, they would find that their LinkedIn profile is often at the top of the list. Without paying LinkedIn, without paying Google, this is organically one of the highest results. You are an author of a book, and still your LinkedIn profile may top the Amazon result and the tech talk you had, and almost anything. So it's important not just to be there, but to appear in a professional way to your community.
100%. I mean, the Kalicube Pro SaaS platform tracks brand SERPs, what appears when somebody searches a person's name or a company name. And LinkedIn is phenomenally present, as you said, especially with people, especially with professional people. A star, it would be a music star, for example, would probably be Instagram or Twitter. And so you've got to look at the area the person is, the industry. But LinkedIn, from a B2B and a B2C professional standpoint, phenomenally important, which makes this conversation even more relevant to everything in the entire universe. Now, what I quickly did was go onto your profile, and I love this. Here's a video.
Leveraging LinkedIn can be quite daunting. Follow me.
How well does that work?
It makes you stand out. You know, it's very easy to upload a video. It took me less than 30 seconds in my car, but people still, when I'm on a call or a Zoom call, and someone Googles my or goes to my LinkedIn profile, and I hear that, they're almost persuaded I jumped on their laptop or their device and tried to do that something. So it's easy. It's a cover video. It could be up to 20 or 30 seconds long. It would initially play muted.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason I added captions to it, and you can obviously change it. So if you'd like to promote the Wordlift, or if you'd like to promote the Kalicube Pro Saas, you can upload that video, and maybe in 2 months' time you'll have something else you'd like to do. So simply update the video or use something else.
Right. Yeah, because I did that about 1.5 years ago, and I've realized, I paid much too much attention to it. When I look at yours, I spent hours figuring out the 30-second pitch and getting it exactly right, getting the light right, and all of that stuff. And I haven't looked at it again. I've just left it there, and I didn't put subtitles or, sorry, captions. So definitely something I need to revisit. But I kind of thought it's a gimmick, but it works.
So many people mention this when they speak to me, and usually in a neutral.
Maybe yours works because it's funny.
You're too kind. It's subjective. Okay, so some people will say, you know what, I would never do that, but I like the idea, or I like the way that you're educating us about the possibilities of having that. But my cover video is going to be that serious. I'm going to mention the way we save the planet. That's fine. It needs to be aligned with your personality. If you're a serious person, then a cover video would be the last place you want to start to try to be funny or amusing. It has to be aligned with you.
Right. No, that's a really, really good point. I think I can actually now remember what I put in mine. But that's definitely, note to the team, that's something we need to look at again, because in fact mine should be, hi, I'm Jason Barnard, the brand set guy. I used to be a blue dog, and I played double bass in a punk folk band in France. And by the way, I run a major international digital marketing agency that specializes in knowledge panels and brand SERPs. I've just written the script, and now I've just got to find something funny to make to make it more personal. But I like yours because it shows personality, and it makes me want to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's LinkedIn has increased the number and the rhythm of new features. Some of them are more hidden, some of them are less hidden. It's important. It's nice to try and play with new features and decide whether you want to rule it out or just know that it exists there.
Yeah, right. And I 100%. I mean, I was actually looking at it. It's interesting you say that, because the first thing I did was look at your profile. I like the header image where you've put the latest upcoming events, and then there's an awful lot of information. You've filled this in incredibly well. That's one question, is how important is it to fill in your profile that well?
I think it's important to, let me ask you 3 questions. Who's the ideal reader you'd like to attract?
Oh, good question.
So let's say an agency owner that wants to help their clients with SEO or SERP, for the sake of our discussion. And Jason, the second question would be, what action would you like them to perform if they visit your LinkedIn profile today? What would you like them to do after they read your profile?
Right, yeah, because I've been looking at it as a CV, and I should be looking at it as a way to present myself. What I want people to do next is a question I haven't asked myself and should ask myself. So at the minute, it's just kind of this mishmash of things I've put up from time to time as it occurred to me, or as LinkedIn asked me to do it.
So this is exactly what I'd like our audience here to take away. If you're an employee and you're looking at one point, you'll be looking for a job, then yes, it's okay to have to consider it as a CV. But if you're a business owner, then it doesn't make sense, because the reader is less interested in understanding whether you started the agency in April 2010 or May 2012, but they want to see what you bring to the table. And your profile shows that. You have a very interesting banner. You have the contact information with the links, the Twitter link and Kalicube.pro and jasonbarnard.com. So within 5 seconds, I have a lot of information. There's the featured section where there are videos and other elements. Yes, it is important to fill our profile, simply because when we run a search, LinkedIn indexes everything on your profile from the headline to the skills.
Right.
So it is important. I'm not saying that everyone will actually read from A to Z the profile, but it makes it a lot easier for people to find you.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the aspect of search engine. Now, what I love there is you've actually said the header was incredibly good until we changed it as a joke to be the same as yours. That was thanks to Joanne, but the header was actually Marianne from the Kalicube team who designed that with Katrina. That was their genius idea. And then as you go down, it just gets steadily worse. So what we now need to do is look at that again and try and sort it out. And I think kind of most of us need to do it, saying, am I an employer or an employee? And what do I need to project? And what do I want the audience to understand and then do next? Brilliant. That brings us to the LinkedIn as a search engine. I had a quick look around here. And I speeded it up because otherwise it's really boring. I looked your name up and I started looking in the posts, and I looked at first connection posts in the last week. Loads of filters there that I'd never even bothered looking at. And it's very personalized to me, my relationship with you, which is quite interesting. Then I thought, let's look up SEO. Let's see if we can do business by finding an SEO consultant, or maybe an SEO group to join, or an SEO company. So that for me was my first experience of actually bothering looking at those filters. But there are lots of filters, lots of opportunities to dig down and find information. 2 questions there. Number 1, how do you get in there? How do you make the most of that? And number 2, how much do people actually use it? And is it worth it?
Excellent. So when LinkedIn released information, there were billions of searches run on the platform each year. I'm not comparing it to Google, but many people simply forget about the search aspect of LinkedIn. Granted, some people use it more than others. Okay, recruiters may use LinkedIn search daily, where some business owners would hardly ever use the search facility that LinkedIn has. The ability for you to search is increased if you know what you're looking for. So if you're looking for an SEO agency, or if you're looking for a B2B service provider, or if you're looking for an IT specialist, or if you're looking for someone who could help you with keyword research, then the terms you would use on your search are important. And another thing I'd like to mention, Jason, because you know so much about your specialty, the terms you would usually use are specialized terms. And in some cases, the clients or the prospect that you may want to work with are less educated, and they would run basic search. Instead of entering the sophisticated terms, they would use very simple terms that could be even inaccurate in your eyes. But if 30% of people call this X and it's wrong, then that X term needs to be somewhere on your profile. So I'll say this: write for the human, but remember the algorithm. Write for the human, but remember the algorithm. You could simply say, some people call it X, we call it Y.
Right.
So the X is there for the algorithm, and Y is for you to be frank about it and say, this is what we do. We're organic, we're A, we C, but you try to tell a story that includes the keywords.
Brilliant. Okay, so and that's a really good point about the algorithm, because it is a search algorithm. It is pulling this information out from an enormous database. The difference between Google and LinkedIn would then be that LinkedIn is a closed data set that they manage, and it's in a database that they control. So it's very easy for them to order it. Like Amazon is a similar situation, whereas Google's looking at the mass of the web and trying to make sense of that. So LinkedIn, theoretically, and this is very theoretically from me, would be easier to trick.
Yes. Okay. So let's mention some figures here. LinkedIn has 850 million users worldwide, give and take. And since you went live, thousands of people, Jason, have opened up a LinkedIn account every second as of October 2022. 3 people sign up.
Wow. Okay.
Most of the growth is outside of the US.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn is growing in the US, but most of the growth is actually in English-speaking countries outside of the US. So yes, it could be easier for you to try and game the system, but initially you don't have to game the system. You need to stand up with what you'd like people to find when they're looking for you.
Yeah.
The easiest way to do it, perhaps, could I mention 2 examples?
Yep. Go ahead, please.
Cool. So one would be for an employee, and the second would be for a business owner. As an employee, I would simply ask myself, what sort of position am I looking for next?
Right.
Perhaps I was an Instagram specialist and I'm looking to become a digital marketer. Perhaps I was a growth hacker and now I'm looking for a marketing director position. What I would do is simply find 2 or 3 detailed job descriptions that I would define as ideal for me. This is the ideal position. It doesn't matter whether they're based in Rouen or in Ottawa. It doesn't matter. It's just the description itself.
Right.
And what I would recommend is extracting or writing on an Excel spreadsheet 25 terms from each job description. And if you're doing this for 2 or 3 jobs, you'd have a bank of 50 or 60 keywords that you found on job openings.
Right.
Then you go to your LinkedIn profile and you basically look for those terms. And the employees would usually find many of those terms, but never all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would shorten the list. Instead of 60 terms, you would say, okay, I have these 20 terms. And now let's think about the others. Which are the 3 most important keywords that I must add to my profile today?
Mm-hmm.
And next, where do I logically include that term, thinking about the human reader? So if this is one of your specialties, it makes sense to write it in the experience section. If it's a side project, it makes more sense to add it as a project. If you know nothing about it, but you'd like to get into that, use the skills section.
Right. Oh, that's a really nice piece of advice. Very simple. And what about from the B2B doing business perspective as a company? I think can I ask a really quick question and then say the more general question is, I can consider the Kalicube company page and my own page to both be driving business for Kalicube because it's my company.
Okay, there's often a gap if we're speaking about agencies and SMBs. The Kalicube page has over 1,000 followers.
You've been researching us. Thank you, Joanne, because otherwise he would have said 5 a year ago.
But you as the agency, or as the brand owner, you have more than 1,000. You have close to 8,100 followers. Mm-hmm. So even if you're a brand owner, and even if you want to improve your page, it makes sense for you to focus on your individual profile.
Right. Oh, we've got Danielle who's stood up and has gone to answer the phone or got a coffee or close the door. Oh, we've lost the sound as well, I'm afraid.
I'm sorry. I was muted for 5 seconds. Apologies.
It's okay. No problem at all. That was an explanation for the people who can't see the screen who listen to the podcast. So you were saying I've got Kalicube, which is nice and big, but my personal profile is going to drive the business better.
Yes. When people visit you, they may also end up going on the Kalicube page, but a page is basically static. And even say, I now follow the page. You, as the brand owner, have no information about me, only an aggregate information. Okay, instead of 1,100, now we're 1,120. Whereas if we connected as individuals, then you would usually have access to my email. And that means you can leave the LinkedIn platform and communicate with me. It's like when you published your book on Amazon and 20 more people bought it, then Amazon held the customer data. And you received the royalties, but you could not know just based on Amazon whether Jane Doe from Pasadena bought it or someone from Marseille. So it's important to have a page, but a lot of things will only happen through your individual profile and your staff.
Yeah, I mean, with the book, The Fundamentals of Brand SERPs for Business, I actually pushed it out through Amazon. I thought, I can sell some of these and make some money. But in fact, you don't make any money. And the selling the book, you have to sell vast numbers of copies to actually make any money. And so it becomes more of a calling card than anything else. And once again, not only do I not receive very much information, not very much money, but I don't get very much information about the purchasers. So I have no opportunity to then move the business forward.
There were two examples we wanted to mention. One was about the employee.
Oh, right,
Okay, so we said analyze job descriptions, extract terms, and focus on the most important ones and try to include them smartly somewhere within your profile, thinking about the human reader. Right. If you just imagine I would look at some agency owner's profile and I would see their headline to say SEO, SEO, SEO 5 times. Then as a reader, I would go and say, hey, what's happening here? That seems like a trial, someone who wants to game the system, because they haven't written it for us as readers. They're writing it only for the algorithm. So it's a dangerous game. You always have to remember the human element. The objective is not only to drive people to your profile, but to make them stay. And in order to make them stay, you need to share the truth. We deal with SEO. We help people be found on Google. We help with SERP. Everything is fine, but you need to be. It's like if I'm going to a meetup and I'm sitting next to you, then these would be the terms I may hear. Or when you go and speak on a conference, that could be in the introduction. Okay, the MC would say, "Please welcome Jason Barnard," and then there would be some maybe 2 or 3 sentences about you. These are fine. And about a business owner, the quickest way to do it would be to actually interview some people and understand what terms people would use when they're looking for their brand as a business owner. You could do it if you have a keyword research. If you know the answers, you basically find the terms and try to incorporate them into your profile or your page. And maybe the last thing you could do if you want to really be on top of it, is to look at a number of other results. Say I run a search for agency owner, B2B, LinkedIn, Saas, and a number of other keywords, and I would find 20 people. And one way it's difficult to game the system is that no 2 people will see you in the same rank.
All right.
When you run the search, you will not find yourself. And when I run the search, or someone who's connected with you, you would end up in different rankings based on LinkedIn.
Right. So which is really important to know.
Yes, absolutely. And to go back to what we could do with other people, I'm sure that if you look up at some agency owner, again, it doesn't have to be a direct competitor. It could be in an area you're not even remotely interested in, but you can always read and say, hey, that keyword is very important for us. I'm not sure we've used that. And then you go to your profile and you double check. And if you see the term has not been incorporated anywhere, you thank the gentleman, you thank the lady, and you think, honestly, where would I put that term?
Right. Yeah, okay. And from that perspective, you're saying I need to put it in the most appropriate place rather than thinking whatever's at the top is the most important, whatever's at the bottom is least important, because it's segmented so precisely. It's appropriateness that counts.
Yeah, I think you need to stand up. Not everything is equally important for you. You could find terms that are up and coming and interesting, but they're niche terms. So a niche term, the place for a niche term would usually not be in your headline or not be above the fold. Yeah. Because what would happen is that some people who would see that if someone doesn't understand the term, then they say Jason may know a lot, but this is not relevant for us. So you would use that term, but you would put it somewhere below in the specialty, or somewhere that would be good for the algorithm without harming the human perception.
Okay. No, that's really, really insightful and really helpful. One question that now occurs to me is all the people who put little icons in their title.
Yes.
I find that vastly annoying. Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? I mean, it's supposed to draw your eye.
Okay, two tests. When we run a search, then yes, we may find it. When you reorder your connections by name, then those gentlemen and those ladies would usually come up first. But
it's like calling yourself ABBA.
Yes, exactly.
As a music group to come at the front of the records when people are going flipping through the records in the record shop. Sorry.
Back in the day with the yellow pages, that was the reason for AA whatever it was. But the
Aardvark Company Limited.
Yes. But what you said is actually more important, because if we find you early enough, but we don't like it, then we're turned off. So there's a price for you. If you're happy to pay the price and you say, I know maybe 70% will be turned off, but the 10% that will be attracted by this are the ones I want to work with, then fine. If you only try to game the system, it doesn't really work in the long term. Yeah,
no, okay. So it comes down to personality and saying, well, I mean, I generalize terribly by saying it annoys me, but it doesn't actually annoy me. I mean, sometimes if you on Twitter, I see it a lot, and it seems to me more appropriate on Twitter than it is on LinkedIn, which is probably what shocks me. But at the same time, as well, I was talking to Kate Toon about this for her copywriting, and she says one of the aims of her copywriting is to get rid of the chaff, get rid of the people who aren't truly interested before they get to the bottom.
Okay, so it's a vast topic. I will only mention this. You're responsible for the way other people what other people see in your profile, but from my perspective, you're also responsible for the names of the mutual connections I see when I visit your profile, and for the content you've decided to share. If you only try to game the system, then at one point you pay the price.
Right. No, and that's a really interesting point. I mean, the content shared, no problem at all. The people with whom you are connected is actually very important, because it does recognize or understand somebody from the friends they hang out with. And if I'm accepting absolutely everybody as a connection, then I'm obviously not focusing very much and just going for volume.
Right, and I'll also mention a price you may pay for that. If some of your revenues are based on referrals, then what do I see when I visit your profile? I see 3 names: Jason Sircon, Mickey Anderson, and Michael Dillon. 3 podcasters. And that means I'm able to reach out to each and every one of them and say, can you introduce me to Jason, please? Because I've built a minimal relationship with them. But imagine I would not know these 3 people, then I would not be able to reach out to you. And the worst thing is that if you look me up and you see those 3 people and say, I only know one of them, I will not be there to tell you, you know what? Forget about Jason, forget about Josh. I'd like you to ask Mickey. That's what I mean when I say your connections have to speak for themselves. If someone reach out to a connection of yours, the answer you want is Jason is the go-to person if you like your SERP, your brand SERP to improve, and not Jason who? No, I have no idea. Maybe send me a connection request. Don't be that person.
No. Yeah, definitely. I've made some mistakes. Now, would it be a good idea to go through and clean up the connections?
It would be a good idea to decide whether in the long term you'd like to be the most connected or the best connected. And you need to decide what system you put in place for you to keep in touch with people. It's challenging when you have thousands of people. It may be challenging even if you have 300. If you're happy keeping up with people and helping other people and making introduction, you could have a large network and you would gain a lot of exposure. Probably the worst area to be is somewhere in between, where you only gain marginal exposure and you manage to water down the quality of your network.
That is the most brilliant piece of concluding advice I've heard in a long time. And I do like the fact that I'm probably right smack in the middle of my bum between two chairs, as we say in French. So definitely a lot of work for us to be doing at Kalicube. I think a lot of really, really, really useful information there. I'm absolutely thrilled to have had you on today, helping out with, for me, understanding how this works better. Thank you so much, Daniel. We're going to pass the baton now for next week. We have Stacey Hall talking about how to make sales by staying in your comfort zone. That's going to be really interesting because comfort zones are, by definition, comfortable, and making sales is, by definition, going to make you some money and hopefully buy you a house, which is what I'm going to do next year. Daniel.
Stacey, I wish you an excellent episode with Jason on Kalicube Tuesday. I had a lot of fun, and I look forward to tuning in next Tuesday live to hear how we can improve ourselves without leaving our comfort zone. Please forgive me for not singing. That's the best I could do. I'm only human, and I'm a man at that.
Right, brilliant. That was a lovely passing of the baton. Thank you so much, Daniel. I will sing a quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye. See you soon.
Merci beaucoup.
Kalicube. It's all about your brand SERP.